We're here with Simon Thomas, Group Director, Audiences Research and Media Investment Management at GroupM. How are you doing, Simon?
Good afternoon, Keith. Yep. And for my sins, that is a global role. So a lot of countries to talk about.
So to start us off with a question that leads to an expansive answer, why is attention important?
Attention's a fundamental part of communication, and brand marketing is about communicating the brand, the benefits of the brand, the culture of the brand, the uniqueness of a brand, or a price point, whatever it may be. So it's a fundamental of advertising and marketing in that you're communicating to your either existing or potential consumers. So attention and the battle for attention, which has got, I think, exponentially harder over probably the last 15 to 20 years during the digital transformation. Attention is actually a fundamental in that. That may be active attention, which is obviously conscious, or it could actually be inactive attention or subliminal attention, whereby you're actually bringing from the back of memory, and I hate to raise it, but Kahneman's System 1 and System 2 thinking. A lot of what we do is based on spontaneity and brain muscle memory. We don't actually consciously make decisions. It's to bring either that subliminal or some overt, explicit brand sentiment, value, benefit, whatever it may be, to a consumer's notice and have their attention focus or in some way neurologically go through a process where a brand consideration is made. There you go. There's a nice short answer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's the fundamental, quite frankly. It's what advertising's all about. And we have to remember we're talking about advertising. We're not talking about impressions or anything like that. This is about brand communication.
Yeah. And you mentioned you have a global role, and obviously here in the US, attention is dominating
Yeah.
industry events. There's a number of companies based here, also Australia, the UK. So in the US, attention is extremely important. How's your global
Yeah.
remit? Is
Yeah.
attention talked about more in different countries, or is everyone starting to really embrace it?
That's a really great question, actually. The US, it's very, very active right now. Certainly, my colleagues in Group M, I know, are doing an awful lot of work on attention and looking at various partners in the different sectors of attention, whether that be the campaign measurement side or whether that's in terms of looking at attention metric usage in planning, or indeed in creative optimization. But actually, the interesting thing is, and as I said, the US is very active. The great work done by the ARF recently. My good friend John, who I think did one of these, John Watts did one of these recently for you. At Sim, there's been some great work, and I think the US has actually caught up. I mean, really, if I think back, we've probably been looking at attention in its current guise probably for the last 5 or 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
We worked through MediaCom with Mars on creative optimization with Soren Platinet, the client. I mean, that's a great case study, and it is literally with Realize going back 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And attention became quite popular with my dear friend Karen Nelson Field. She really was talking attention, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. So she gives some real credibility to the topic. So it's not new. I think what's happened, it was in various silos. One of our competitors jumped on the attention economy 4 or 5 years ago, and Mr. Waite was responsible for that, and well done to him and well done to them. But I think the conversations were already going on with some clients, and obviously within Group M, with roughly a third of the world's billing, advertising agency based, we've actually got a lot of very large clients for whom attention has been front of mind for a number of years. I think what's happened is its use within the activation sphere, and particularly activation optimization for campaign within the digital display area, really began to take, within programmatic buying, began to get a hell of a lot of traction. And our friends at Adelaide and Playground, and indeed a Nordic company, Tubi. We must remember the Nordics, and we must remember our French cousins as well. They've been active for quite a long while in this, and it's nothing new. So we've been probably doing programmatic optimization on attention metrics, certainly in Central Europe, in Germany, in Switzerland, places like that, probably for the last 3 or 4 years. And my
Hmm.
colleagues out in GroupM and MediaCom in particular in Asia Pacific, I mean, they issued POVs and were testing and doing a lot of work with the two main Australian companies. And the UK has been embracing it probably for about the last 2.5 to 3 years. So I have to tell you, the US has caught up and has given some real scale. A lot of it being driven by clients as well, asking the question. But that's clients that weren't already involved in attention. And I can think of some clients that have been involved in attention for 20 odd, 30 odd years. Things like eye tracking are not new. What we've got is new
Right.
technology, which
Right.
makes it a hell of a lot easier, far better camera definition and resolutions, and so on and so forth. But there's a lot of other areas in terms of biometric measurement, facial expression. Again, facial expression probably been around for the best part of 15 years. It's only now it's if you can think of it on a Gartner hype cycle, maybe. We went through sort of the initial pioneer growth, and I think it's now becoming a far more mass market area, both on the buy and the sell side. But I think advertisers in particular are particularly interested from their perspective, because it's an opportunity to look at ways to get a better return from their advertising bucks. And that's what it's all about. It's about ROI. It's not about eyeballs and about
Right.
impressions. It's about what those eyeballs and those impressions are doing. What's the outcome? I think what's changed, probably in the last 6 months, in most of all, is a much greater acknowledgement of the need to encompass the outcome as part of part of that measurement and the planning process.
Yeah, there's obviously realize that many of the companies behind this are global companies, so it's great to see the markets that needed catching up to do have caught up.
Yeah, I actually, Keith, just to add to that, that really is the core of attention. I mean, yes, there's a lot of attention work going on in France, but there's a lot of other countries where it isn't,
Yeah.
where there's an interest, but they haven't necessarily got the critical mass to actually introduce those attention metrics. If you are a major global or regional advertiser, you want this opportunity in all of your markets. You don't necessarily just want it in the US, the UK, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, China, India, and so on and so forth. You want it in all your markets, because you've actually got in all of those markets exactly the same issue. For me, one of the really interesting things, though, is regional variations and even market variations in the way attention is used. Not everybody watches video in the same way that you do in the US or that we do in the UK. In Germany, in Netherlands, in Italy, Spain, India, Australia, it's different. Those nuances in the marketplaces begin to give greater granularity to attention metrics, which until very recently, we looked at averages, we looked at aggregates. Oh, well, yes, there's a high attention score, therefore we're going to get a higher brand metric uplift, let's say consideration or brand preference. That may be the case, but you actually need to dig down into individual categories like automotive, financial, travel, so on and so forth, and actually individual brands and their competitive set to see where the best and highest attention is, and ally that to other measures of inventory or advertising media quality.
What is your thoughts or GroupM's perspective on how whether creative and media attention should work hand in hand, or whether they should be viewed separately? Like, how do you guys visualize that?
Oh, it's absolutely. It has to be integrated. There's no. It's a continuous circle. It's not a stack. It's not an ad tech stack where an attention metric goes in somewhere like a viewability metric on steroids. It's a different, and because it has such an impact on different levels within effectiveness, within creative optimization, and so the use of attention, is one measure, as I said, of effectiveness, which is part of the much greater creative all the way through to activation process. So in terms of your creative message, there's no point having the most how shall I put this politely, the most efficiently procured inventory if you're then not going to put a very good ad in there. Funnily enough, you might not find the sales uplift. Likewise, if you put fantastic creative, but it's to the wrong consumers, in the wrong mindsets, in the wrong need states, at the wrong stage of their purchase journey, you're wasting your money. So it's a combination of all of those strategic planning, tactical planning, and activation moments all put together. I mean, and that's what media agencies and advertising agencies do. I mean, I come from a full service agency background back in the 90s. You know, we didn't have media independence. We worked with the creative guys, we worked with the brand planners. And I think what we're seeing, certainly within Group M, and I know this is very much part of what Mark Reed's been talking about within WPP, is we're talking about advertising, better advertising, which encompasses that whole continuum, which actually is a circular feedback loop into the whole briefing process from the start with the budget and the objective through the creative all the way to activation, post reporting, ROI reporting, and then learning for the next phases as you go through. So yeah, absolutely crucial to integrate, and that's very much the Group M way.
What's the best advice for an organization that maybe is just starting out to get up to speed with, understanding what attention is and how to apply it to their business?
Obviously, test and learn. You know, you don't find out unless you try it. Companies that are by that I mean advertisers that are engaged with attention. Some have had great results, and I mentioned Mars earlier. There are others. There are others that are being far more data science orientated about what they do, and attention is just one part of a much bigger data science and even deep learning and AI based marketing planning process. There are other clients who have no interest in attention whatsoever. It's different horses for different courses, and it's still nascent. And I think the problem we've got is actually moving it away from a pure activation level back into the planning phase. The importance for me is when we can use it in planning to actually ensure we're going into the right media channels, but also into the right media mix. And it's that synergy across the multimedia mix that's so important. And if you're just using it for activation in a particular media channel vertical, yeah, great. It will give you advantages. Some will do it, some will not.
Simon, thank you so much for your expansive answers.
It was an absolute pleasure. And as always, nice to talk to you guys, as indeed it is to all of those involved in the attention marketplace.